Most travel is about coverage. You pick a country, you string together 5 or 6 places, and you spend 2 weeks watching the road go by. But a LiveAway works the opposite way. You pick one place, you unpack once, and you give yourself enough time there that the cafe you sat in on the second day starts to recognize you by the second week. It's slower, it's quieter, and it suits some destinations better than others. The one I want to take you today is, in my view, about as good a fit for it as anywhere we go. I live on Koh Phangan, the next island north of Koh Samui, about 12 kilometers of water between us. And from the south side of my island, Samui doesn't just sit on the horizon, it dominates it. A long green silhouette across the water every clear morning. So this isn't somewhere I researched into a destination. It's the island I look across whenever I get to be at home. The one I keep going back to. Koh Samui is Thailand's second largest island, 200 square kilometers of beach, jungle, and small towns out in the Gulf of Thailand. 40 years ago, it was coconut farmers and fishermen. Now it's an airport, a few good roads, and a coastline that includes some of the best beach you'll find anywhere in Southeast Asia. But here's the thing about Thailand. It rewards staying. The country has a habit, if you fly through it, of giving you the airport shop version. Pad Thai and a beach photo and a Buddha statue. None of which is wrong, but none of which is the country either. 2 weeks here, you start to get past that. You learn the difference between southern Thai food and the cooking from up north. You figure out which of the temples reward a second visit, and you start to understand why so many of us who came once ended up staying. Before the island, there's an optional week we'd point you toward. 3 nights in Bangkok, the river, the Grand Palace, the markets, and the incredible food. Then 4 nights up in Chiang Mai, in the old Lana capital. Temples, a coffee farm in the hills, and a slower, more cerebral Thailand that most beach visitors never see. It's optional, of course, but if you have the time, the island makes more sense once you've seen what's behind it. Our base on Samui is in Chaweng, the island's busiest town. Over 6 kilometers of white sand, the longest beach on Samui, and the center of gravity for everything else. Restaurants, shops, beach bars, and the lot. But the place we stay isn't part of that. The Muang Samui Spa Resort sits right on the beach, and the moment you step through the gate, you're somewhere else entirely. It's a small property, just as we like them, around 50 rooms over a couple of floors, and a tropical garden runs straight through the middle of it. The pool curves through that garden. The rooms sit on either side, tucked into the greenery. From your terrace, you can hear cicadas in the trees before you can hear anything from the road. Yet you're 10 minutes from 100 restaurants without hearing any of them. And that contrast matters over 2 weeks. You can walk 5 minutes and be in the middle of Chaweng if you feel like it, but you can also stay put on the property and hardly hear it at all. Mornings here move at the pace mornings should move. Some days we head out together for an excursion. Other days, you've got the day to yourself. What people do with these mornings varies. Some swim before breakfast, some walk the whole length of Chaweng Beach and find a quieter stretch of sand at the far end. But some don't even leave the property before noon. There's also a terrific spa attached to the hotel where you can get a classic Thai massage or one of the myriad of other treatments. And most people end up in there at least once or twice before the 2 weeks are out. You can fill the morning if you want to, but you don't have to. Afternoons are where the trip opens up. We built 5 included experiences into the 2 weeks, the ones we'd want to do ourselves if we were here for that long. One is a full day out in Ang Thong Marine Park, 42 limestone islands rising straight out of turquoise water, about 90 minutes from the coast of Samui. Hornbills overhead, dolphins if you're lucky, snorkeling in clear water, and lunch in a small fisherman's village about halfway through. It's a day you'd remember from any trip to this part of the world. Another is the temple day. We'll visit a few of Samui's main temples, but the part that earns the day is at the first one, a sit-down session with a Thai monk. 30 or 40 minutes, and you can ask everything you want about Buddhist practice, monastic life, and how someone ends up there. It's one of those quiet hours that pays you back for weeks. There's also an elephant sanctuary in the island called Samui Elephant Kingdom, and it's worth being honest about this one. A lot of what's offered in Thailand around elephants, riding them, washing them, and all of that is straightforwardly bad for these animals, and we don't take groups to those places anymore. But Samui Elephant Kingdom is a bit different. The elephants roam freely, get proper veterinary care, and the visit is about feeding them and walking alongside them, not on top of them. And then there's the Koh Phangan Day. We take the ferry up to my island and a long-tail boat around to Bottle Beach, one of those places still hard enough to reach that it feels the way those beaches used to feel back in the day. Swim, lunch, watch the long-tails come and go, and the late ferry back to Koh Samui. That's a few of the 5, and on top of those there's an optional layer, a Thai cooking class with a chef named Kun Ta in her own garden. There's also a 4x4 day into the hills with stops at a durian farm and a viewpoint temple, a herbal garden visit, and a catamaran cruising up to Koh Phangan's quieter beaches with dinner on board. Some people do all of it. Some pick and choose. Some find their own things, like a cafe in Boput, where they go back to 3 times in a row, or maybe that stretch of sand at the south end of the beach they keep returning to. That's the deal. There's a thing that happens a few nights into a live-away. The group starts to feel like a group of friends. On the second night, we always have a welcome cocktail, a so-called wheel and anchor mingle. Names get exchanged, and you find out pretty quickly that you're with a group of Canadians who've traveled enough to know that the best part of a trip is often the people that you're on it with. Thai food helps, of course. The cuisine here is the kind that suits a long table. Many small dishes shared around, the spice negotiated to each person's tolerance, and the meal stretching out for a few hours without anyone really noticing. By the second week, you've got people you tend to sit near. There's usually a small group that started organizing their own dinners at a place in Fisherman's Village with a great fire show, or a beach bar at sunset, or one of the recommendations that's been traded over breakfast. One night, we sometimes take a private catamaran out into the Gulf with the barbecue going on board, sun setting behind the islands as we come back in. On another night, there's a cabaret in town, performers who've been at it for years, theatrical, well done, and well worth the laugh. The farewell dinner is the last bookend. But what you remember from a live-away when you're back home is usually about the people as much as the place. That's not an accident. 2 weeks is just long enough for it to happen. Koh Samui is a place I keep going back to. It's why I live next to it. The beach, the food, the fact that the country has more depth than it usually gets credit for. All of that's reason enough. But what makes the live-away work beyond any of that is 14 nights in one place with a small group of Canadians who came for the same reasons you did. You'll know everyone's name by the second dinner. You'll have your own quiet corner of the property by the third day. And by the time you fly home, you won't be ready to. The dates are below. We'd love to have you with us.